Hi everyone, it's Riding Side Saddle with Lisa.
And Tammy.
We're back here and we are in our second season, which is super, super exciting. If you're first joining us for the first time, we have spent a couple of months in our first season really talking about topics that are really important to us from a self-discovery perspective as part of Riding Side Saddle. Really understanding who you are, understanding boundaries, just being able to, as a woman, be able to talk about things that are important to life and to our existence. And we continue on that journey with a friend that we have here tonight, Nikki. And
Nikki's more than a friend. She's family.
She is. She's my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Lucky me.
Oh.
No, really lucky me.
At first, I wasn't sure how that
nice.
tone was there.
You're not. Never sure.
So welcome to the recording studio, Nikki.
I love it here. I love it here. I'm never
It's
leaving.
toasty in the back,
yeah,
right?
It's so nice
Yeah.
here.
Nikki's joining us to talk about what is referred to as emotional management. And it actually fits really nicely into some of the episodes that we've been sharing recently about personality and how personality impacts our ability to be present as a woman, to be able to understand ourselves and be able to create boundaries and express ourselves and emotions. And as I learned more about emotional management, it's, really scratching the surface of being able to understand those core emotions that we all experience.
Right. Everyone does. This is not really unique to being a woman.
No, it's not.
At all. It is a human experience, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's I feel like it ties into so many of the episodes that we did in our first episode. Our first season.
Yeah.
It relates to wellness.
Uh-huh.
It relates to boundaries. It relates to how you feel you're well. Not how you feel it, but if you're feeling it, and if you're not, why not? I think it ties into all of that.
Well, even just, and Nikki, you can certainly add context here, but just adding to understanding what's happening in your own mind and body.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it really goes back to that aspect of wellness where it's very holistic, and it is physical wellness, which is attached to emotional wellness, which
Mental
is attached
wellness.
to mental wellness. And all of those things are key ingredients in order to be well as a person.
Right.
It is amazing how our ability or inability to process our own emotions manifests itself in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And even as women, because everyone, they say we're feelers. Imagine that you are a feeler, and they say women are just more in touch with their emotions, yet you don't necessarily have the greatest ability to process those emotions. Can you imagine how many different ways that can manifest in someone's lives, especially with all the roles we have?
Yeah.
Right? And that's why this is so important to me.
Well,
Lisa and I were having a conversation
you're
earlier
gonna say
today.
exactly what was ready to come
Really?
out of my mouth. Go ahead.
All right, well, fine. We're channeling once again. We were having a conversation earlier today before we met with you. And Nikki, it was about, kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, mental wellness or physical wellness?
Yeah.
So if your thoughts literally control every aspect of your being,
Every
your
single
environment, your we talked about this on a different episode. I'm an 8. Lisa's a 1. We're both instinctual on the Enneagram scale. We're both instinctual numbers. My stomach hurts. When my thoughts get to where my stomach is hurting, I'm not in a good place.
Yeah.
Oof.
So what comes first? And and what some of our conversation was. So I've read articles about if you just start exercising, you'll feel better mentally.
Which is true.
It is true. I'm not saying that's not true. Yeah. But if you're not in a mental place where you can even allow
Right.
the space for you to be physically active,
Right.
isn't it more like your mental health has to get straight before your physical health can get straight?
I can't disagree.
I don't know.
with you.
Which is it, chicken or the egg?
I think that even a little bit in a gas can can get you going for a while, but it might not take you very far. So I think that you
true.
could get yourself on a treadmill,
Yeah.
and you could get yourself going. But
you're
when
running
you're
on
not,
fumes.
you're running on fumes. If you are not processing your emotions in a way that is healthy, or you're just choosing not to process them in general, you're going to run on fumes.
Or you don't know how to process them.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
You know
interesting.
how to stuff them down. You don't know how to process.
So what's interesting is when I said we're channeling and we're on the same page,
Yeah.
we absolutely were not.
Oh,
What
all right. Go in a whole different direction.
What I was thinking that you were going to say, which was another
You
topic.
don't know me.
That's really funny.
Which was another topic that we were talking about today, was the comment of don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about. Right. So like,
Well, that's why you learned how to, well, for myself, that's how I learned how to stuff my feelings.
so that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
right? So that
Yeah.
that philosophy
Yeah.
of parenting, which I was raised with and I parented with,
Yeah.
you know, to an
a
absolute degree,
yeah.
which I see now as a reflection, like, holy shit,
was not so good.
I created the space where my children were not able to express emotions in a healthy way
Yes.
because they told them to stop. And that's not fair. So that, and admittedly, right, that was the absolute wrong thing to do. Admittedly, that's where this kind of stuff comes from, to be able
Absolutely.
to say, I don't know what my emotions are because I was told that I can't have emotions
Right.
and I was told I cannot express them.
Yes.
So that brings us to this now. Like I jacked it up.
Yeah.
I jacked it up hard.
I did too.
And
I love you for this, because if you don't know what like really emotional management is, part of it is the thing you just did. You take it out, you look at it from every single angle. I mean, I wish that there was a more scientific way to say that, but in Nikki terms, it is you take that emotion and you look at it from all those different angles and you examine it and you're like, that is very interesting. And the example that I use that's very similar to what you used is like, if a guy is told you can't cry,
yeah.
when something terribly tragic happens, that manifests itself. So sadness is a primary emotion. If we decide to stuff that down, anything we decide to stuff down, secondary emotions creep up. And those are dirty little fellas. Because
Yeah.
if you try to decide that you're not going to process sadness, then it really comes out as things like guilt, depression, stupidity, loneliness, hatred, tiredness. It's unbelievable. I feel bad because what I'm not trying to do is telling you that that's what you did to your daughter.
I know
Because
that's,
that is
I
not
know
it.
that's absolutely what I did to my daughter.
Well,
so
it wasn't just Lisa.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I mean,
my kids suffered
it's,
like that
it's a
too.
generational thing,
It is,
right?
isn't
like,
it?
and
Yeah.
and I acknowledge it, and I own it.
Exactly.
So let's step back a minute, okay? So you had talked about two things from an emotional management perspective. You had shared a term called primary emotion.
Yep.
And you shared a term of secondary emotion. Tell me more about primary emotions
Let me tell
first.
you.
Okay.
Primary emotions are emotions that are not produced by thought. Okay? Primary emotions are emotions
So
that are
they're-
not produced by
So
thought.
meaning they're instinctual?
They're instinctual.
Okay.
They're visceral. I used the example with you guys before. If you were having dinner in a restaurant and someone that you haven't seen in 25 years that you can't believe you're seeing walks in the door, you cannot help whatever response is coming out of your mouth. It's probably shock. Oh my goodness. If someone dies tragically and you were just told that,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
that's a visceral response.
That's
that is
going to happen
primary.
automatic.
And
All
so
right.
you know
It's
how
primal.
Yeah.
it is. So,
So
you know how
primary
when
equals primal.
you know how sometimes you like watch these television shows about, or even listen to stories of murderers that when they're told something, they don't have a quote correct response.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
what they're referring to.
that
is
is
primal.
that's like a real big example,
Core,
like way
yeah.
out of control example.
I
but
get
like
it.
that's what they mean.
But they're not having that primary/primal response.
They're not. And so when we decide that we're not going to feel our primary emotions, which I'll tell you what those are, your primary emotions are sadness, anger, fear, joy, power, and peace. And I thought when I heard those first, I'm like, that is a weird group.
It is. Well,
It is weird.
I get sadness. I get anger, madness. I get fear. I don't necessarily get peace and power. Like that, I understand it, but it doesn't feel like it fits in that category.
Like a primary response. So I have said for a long time that, and clearly I'm wrong based on what you're saying now, that being angry is a result of an emotion, but it's really the other way around.
Absolutely. Anger is a core emotion. It's core, it's visceral. It happens. You can try to stuff it down, but you better feel it. If you're pissed, just get pissed. Because if you decide I'm not going to get pissed, I'm going to pretend that this is just
That it's
okay.
fine.
I'm going to logic through this.
So I think, okay, so the way I logicked through it was, I am mad, but I'm mad because I'm disappointed.
So you flipped it.
Yes, exactly. So in my mind, I thought, really what I'm feeling, the actual feeling is disappointment, for instance.
But look at you.
Which then
You just took that out and you held it in front of you and you looked at it from all angles. That is the proper response. What you just did. That was it. You did it. Oh,
Gotcha.
I'm not really angry. I'm actually more disappointed.
Right.
And here's why.
Right.
As opposed to, nope, I'm not angry. I'm perfectly fine. Everything's all good.
Well, that's passive aggressive. And I mean, it might even be gaslighting yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I guess I never really thought of it that
I didn't
way.
either till this very minute, but I think it is actually gaslighting yourself.
Yep.
I'm not mad. Don't worry.
I'm fine.
It'll be fine.
I'm fine.
It makes sense because of XYZ reason. I'm okay with it because I've justified it. Is that kind of where you're saying?
Kind of,
what
but are
people
you
get
really okay?
messed up.
Or you're
That's what I'm
it's not
saying.
even a justification. You're stuffing it. I'm fine because I can't have a confrontation with you.
There you go.
that too.
Like, I'm fine
Yeah.
because if I deal with this, I might lose my crap.
So
Right. We're going to have a big fight, and I don't want to have a fight. I mean, I'm thinking of it in terms of like marital relations, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to
they're-
stuff this
they're-
because I don't want
that's
to
it.
deal with it.
That's it.
Okay. So
It's not a big enough deal. I'm not going to make it a big deal. I'm just going to stuff it down.
I get it.
But it
And I
always
do
comes
that.
back,
I do
doesn't
do
it?
that,
I know, but
yeah.
it always comes back.
there's a lot of energy happening in this. We are like really high energy.
are.
Yeah.
It's like a ping
this
pong
space.
ball
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking if you stuff it down, you can temporarily stuff it down. Like, I
can.
can't have this conversation with you right now, but when we get back home, I'm going to think this
Yes.
through, and then we're going to
Let
have a
me
conversation
tell
about this.
you.
Or tomorrow.
But that's also an appropriate way of
another
dealing
thing.
with something.
But
That
there's
would be appropriate.
but
I'm
there-
not ready to talk right now.
whew, there's
need
so
a
much
minute.
energy in here
Okay.
right now. There's that I get that. And am I, do I do that? Yeah, I do. Like, is this worth it? Like, is this worth it to me? Am I pissed about it? Yes. Is it worth bringing it up and making a big fucking deal about it? And, all of the ramifications because I made a big deal about it? Sometimes not. So sometimes I just lump it, right?
Yeah.
There's also another component, at least from my perspective, of like, oh, well, that hurt and I'm angry or I'm sad or, XYZ, right? XYZ emotion, primary emotion. Now, let me think about why that might have happened. And it could have happened because of, this reason. Or logically, that makes sense that he did that and it resulted in hurting my feelings. Or, so I have a tendency to rationalize things too. It doesn't make it right.
Sure.
But I'm like, I see how you got there. It still hurt my feelings, but I see how you got there, so I'm going to just have to let that go.
Sure.
I don't know if I heard this or read it. It's not my original thought, but I have used it in my personal life, where somebody will say something like, "Yeah, I did that, but I didn't mean. I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean it
that.
right." And so what I started saying in response was, if I were to knock you over right now, accidentally run into you, and you fell down and hurt yourself,
Oh my gosh, I know where you're going. So good.
and I said, "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it," would you hurt less?
Right.
Your physical body still hurts. You smashed your elbow in the ground.
Right.
And it hurts, and it's going to be bruised, and it's going to hurt for weeks.
Yeah.
That's what happens to my feelings.
Right.
Yep.
So I actually saved a post, right? I save posts on my phone all the time to post on Riding Side Saddle. And one of them is Accountability 101. It has a picture of an egg. It's broken, right? The egg is out of the shell and has, I meant well, and it has a red X through it, right? That wasn't my intent. And it has a red X through that. And Accountability 101, like a green check mark through this sentence, I broke the egg.
Right. Right.
I hurt you.
Like I didn't mean to, and that doesn't allow me to get away, like to not be responsible for it. I did, even though I didn't mean to, I still did.
I mean, I'm telling you, I dealt with this with my boys just the other day. Like, one of my children accidentally broke something of my other child's that didn't belong to him, and one of the children says, "I didn't mean to do it," and I said, "Okay." But it still happened.
Right.
And
it's
so
broken.
you need it's broken, and now you need to acknowledge that you did it, and you got to make amends. It doesn't matter if it was accidental, whether or not you knew you know.
Right.
Right.
And I think
doing
that
a cartwheel in his room was going to break his favorite thing.
Exactly.
That's not, your intent is not, that isn't really relevant.
Right. Right. And I think that's where I was coming from the perspective of like, oh yeah, it wasn't really intentional, or I get how you got there. Ultimately, it did hurt, right?
Yep,
it did make me angry.
It
It
still
did hurt
hurt
my
me.
feelings. It's Accountability 101.
Yes, right, right.
You know what I think? I think you guys have pretty high, like, emotional quotients, to be honest with you. I think we're better than we think we are sometimes.
Thanks, Nikki.
And I think that, well, I mean this because two fabulous women who have a podcast. Hold on. Do you feel me stroking your ego? Do you feel like
validate me some more, Nikki.
I'm just saying, two wonderfully gifted, educated women having a podcast about these things. You guys are probably light years farther than a lot of people. You just know that. Like, you're already like B plus.
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't think so. But
well, we could all be better.
thanks.
But we still have to, still know. But you know what? The interesting thing about this is we're only talking about the things that we see that are negative. And the funny thing is about these,
that's true.
that these primary emotions is they can be what you would think is like super positive, right? Like, something is joy, pure joy. And it feels so good. But sometimes things that feel so good.
I feel like there's a song there.
Yeah, it feels like I'm going to break into something. Hold on, get a notebook. We're writing the next top 40 hit here.
I feel like it was an 80s song. It was already done.
happened. Yeah.
Well, let's think about this. Like, when you felt so good when you were in your 20s, what kind of things did you do? Did you always make really great decisions?
No.
In those joyous, free moments of your life?
No.
So sometimes
Nikki,
our joy gives us what we think is freedom to kind of go off the rails a little bit.
And you gave a really good example during our planning session. You talked about, so you go out, you have a good time, you have a few drinks, you dance, your jam
Feeling
comes on, you're
good.
feeling good.
All is right in your life.
Yes.
Cake on the ocean.
Everything is going well at your
what?
job. Like, everything is aligning for you.
Right. And you go out in that moment and you see somebody who looks really yummy across the bar, and maybe
This sounds
you make
so good so far.
Keep going. Does he have a backwards baseball cap?
Is he a fireman? Tell me more.
Wait, let me close my eyes.
Hold on. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Hold on.
Yep.
Then you start making some bad decisions.
Yeah, it's true.
Decisions that you wake up the next morning and you're like, damn it.
I shouldn't have done
That was not really me and my
was-
best
Well,
friend.
primary thoughts are your balcony thoughts. They're where you're having visceral feelings, and then you're also like making your best decisions for you.
Are you though in that scenario?
But-
are you making the best
No,
decisions?
because
for
that's
you?
secondary stuff right there.
Oh.
Right here?
So we're shifting gears.
Yes, we
is what
are.
you're
We're shifting
saying.
gears. We're talking about joy. We're joyous, but we're shifting it. Like, we're not recognizing, like, right now, I'm in my joy zone. What I'm feeling is joy. It's because right now, everything's aligned in my life. I feel like things are great with my job. I have enough money. I'm feeling really good. So now I'm going to take that feeling goodness and interpret it by using your secondary lens. And that comes out as like playful, daring, sexy. Sometimes not. And sometimes those things, don't always make great decisions either. Man, everything has to be so PG-13 when you're in your primary, doesn't it? I hate emotions.
Well, because if it isn't, and you do just let your hair down, right? And wake up the next morning feeling regretful.
Yes.
That sucks.
Yes.
I don't like that feeling.
We took it a little too far. We didn't recognize that the good things in our lives, like that joy, we didn't sit in that joy. We didn't sit in it.
Oh, we shifted gears without realizing.
That's the key. We didn't sit in it.
Like we were like, everything is so great. I think everything is going to be, like everything I do now is going to be so great.
Including that guy in the baseball hat.
Yeah, that fireman I keep talking about, right?
Yeah, not so great.
So unexamined primary emotions.
This never happened.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
This is all fictitious.
Exactly.
Hypothetical.
Yes.
Asking
Unexamined.
for a friend.
Unexamined primary emotions can cause helplessness.
Oh.
They can. And that's the, which is, helplessness is certainly cited as one of the biggest symptoms of depression. Am I right? So I didn't mean to take it down a terrible path, but helplessness, get this, helplessness or not processing primary emotions doesn't stem from unpleasant emotions, but from the belief that these feelings will last forever.
Oh.
So it's like not processing primary emotions, not processing them, slipping into secondary. Now I'm helpless. And helplessness is like, nothing's ever going to get better. But the truth is, if you can go back and start processing your primary emotions like you're supposed to, that this too shall pass. So that's what people need to know, is that you hurt yourself more when you feel bad about your bad feelings. Can I say that again? You hurt yourself more when you feel bad about your bad feelings.
Okay. So I'm on the slow bus sometimes. So I have to apologize for that up front. So when you are saying, okay, you had a handful of primary emotions, some were considered positive, some were considered negative, like good or bad. And I hate to put things into those buckets, but we had joy, we had peacefulness, we had powerfulness, and then we had some that might be considered as negative, anger, fear, sadness, those types of things. So I get not processing those emotions that are considered your negative style of emotions. But let's talk about joy or peacefulness or powerfulness. What does it mean to not process that? That I can't comprehend that.
So, like, for instance, let's just say powerful. I mean, has anyone seen a guy on a power trip or a girl on a power trip? And so when you are maybe feeling powerful about your life. Now, I mean, it sounds terrible. It almost sounds like what I'm saying to you is anytime you're having a positive emotion, you better get yourself in check. Because that's what it's making it sound like. But the truth is, you have to really rationalize, like, this is how I'm feeling, and this is good. This is really good. But sometimes if your powerfulness is in the basement, it could be pride, overconfidence.
I see.
Overimportance.
I see.
You got to remember, this is when
it feels like bulldozing. Like, I'm going to bulldoze you because I don't feel really good about myself, and I'm not going to process why or how I don't feel good. But I'm going to project all of what you just said on. I'm going to project that onto you, and bulldoze you, so I can remain feeling good about myself because I've just pulled all that out of the basement.
So it's balancing that, right? You don't want to be over powerful. You don't want to be over joyful. You don't want to be over peaceful, as opposed to like somewhere in the middle.
I think more like it needs to be dialed in. It needs to be dialed in. Like if I'm in a position of power and everybody knows it. You've all had a boss who's been in a position of power that was an overconfident, male, female jerk.
Right.
And then there's some that are ridiculously thankful, incredibly thoughtful. The more power you have, the more you use it for your own good, kind of thing.
So talk to me about peaceful, for instance, because peaceful feels to me like the best emotion.
Yeah, you can't get
ever,
wrong.
Right?
You can't get that
how can
wrong.
you overdo peaceful?
Yeah.
Is it complacent?
It is. It's best maxed out serenity a little bit. It's maybe over nurturing, and you got to remember
Perhaps
if it sounds
lack of ownership.
Absolutely.
Like everything's
And
just going to happen the way it's going to happen.
and you got to remember if
no
it's foreign to
control
you,
over it.
it's probably not your jam. Like it's probably not something that is on your radar.
Okay.
To be honest with you,
I don't know that I get complacent necessarily, maybe a little bit, but I do get like, I don't need to fight everything all of the time. I can just go with the flow. I'm going to be where I need to be when I need to be there. I'm going to meet the people I need to meet when I need to meet them. I don't need to fight the current so much, which feels a little bit complacent.
it's not like, just like you said, I think that it's maybe somewhere in the middle. It's a little bit more like the idea of dialed in. I think powerful is one of those that's kind of a slippery slope because or not powerful. Peaceful is one of them that's kind of a slippery slope because in the word peaceful is peace.
Right.
And so what's the opposite of peace?
Conflict.
It's conflict. So I guess, how can you over peace? I mean, I understand why that was a little hard. So like, for instance, I think it becomes like over nurturing, maybe a little overbearing, maybe a little bit complacent, and a little bit too serene.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're all a big stress mess. That's not us.
Well, right. So how about this? I remember having an exchange with a friend of mine. I was in a new relationship, and you know how that is, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Everything's great and wonderful, and you love everyone, and yes, all of that, right? And she was not in the same place. She was sad. She was by herself. She was single. She was wishing Mr. Right would come along, and I was like, I know somebody. I've got a guy for you. And she got really upset with me. And she's like, listen, just because you're in love does not mean you need to push everybody on to people who aren't in love.
Interesting.
Right. It was very interesting. And I was like, I thought you wanted to meet people. I'm just trying to introduce you to someone in your area. Mm-hmm. I don't know why we got to have a fight about this.
Right.
And I don't think she meant it that way. I felt like she came at me kind of hard. But maybe she wasn't. Maybe she really was. Based on this conversation now, maybe it was more like, so your joyfulness is out of control.
Yeah. Exactly. Like she
Check
has no
yourself.
peace. She has no peace right now.
Right. So don't let your utopia overflow onto me because that's not appropriate.
Right.
And there's a lot of people out there who are begrudge happiness. I mean, that's kind of a thing. So
that's interesting.
I mean, she has since then found her person, and like that. It wasn't really that she was. I think she felt like I was trying to push her in this direction.
It's the opposite.
When her gut was saying that's not where your person is.
Right. It's the opposite of don't piss in my Cheerios. It's like don't Cheerios in my piss.
Don't yuck my yum. Don't yum my yuck.
Right?
Yes.
Like it was kind of the opposite of that.
Yes.
Okay, that might go down as the quote of the day. I love it so much. Yeah. That was something. You
know what? Don't yum my yuck. Maybe I just want to be yuck right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
That's funny.
And you know what? Honestly, that's fair. If that's where she is.
It is.
That's where she is.
So isn't that what you were saying earlier before, Nikki, about sitting with your emotion?
It is.
Your primary emotion. If her primary emotion in that moment was sadness, I don't know if it was. I'm just saying.
Right.
Like maybe that's where she was.
Exactly.
And mine was in joy.
Right.
Those two things just didn't match at the same time.
Oh, now that's an interesting thought process. You're right about that. It was not matching up.
They weren't
at the same time.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And maybe neither of you were doing nothing wrong.
Right.
You were just like both in your own emotions.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I read something interesting in doing this research. And again, all this research is my own. This is just something that I love researching. It's fun for me.
You're not an expert?
No, not an expert. I think I am. My husband would tell you that I know I am an expert. But I love
really.
this quote. And I wish I could tell you who told it. I don't know. It says, emotions will pass on their own time, whether you want them to leave because they're unpleasant or you want them to stay because of their pleasantness.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true. Mm-hmm. They're fleeting, right?
They are.
They're fleeting.
It's absolutely waves in the ocean.
So we could sit here and be like, we're going to manifest some positive stuff. We're going to process. We're going to take out that emotion. We're going to look at it from all the angles and say, you know how you said, how do you process emotions? Yeah. It's by picking it up and be like, let's look at this sadness. This is very interesting. It's like you try to be a scientist on the outside.
You're
looking
an observer.
At that. Mm-hmm. You're an observer.
As opposed to being the emotion. You are an observer of the emotion.
So you remove yourself
Yes.
from your emotion.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. That's high
No.
level,
Heck
baby.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, hi Sarah, her mom used to tell her when she was growing up, when, you know, she'd have a problem or a feeling, right, an emotion of whatever. Her mom would say, and I hope I get this right, Sarah, you'll correct me if it's wrong. You'll get, oh gosh, I want to get this right. It'll get better. And if it doesn't, it'll get better in a couple days. If it doesn't, you'll get used to it.
Oh, isn't
that was
something?
the quote.
Yikes.
Yeah, it'll get better in a couple of days. If it doesn't, you'll get used to it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how to take that.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Like that's actually very deep.
it is. It is. But I find myself going back to that.
I also think
Often.
one of the things that I go back to all the time is that we've got to stop attaching the idea of feeling our feelings to being dysfunctional. I think that so many times we think, oh, at least me, I get so mad at myself that I'm mad about something. Do you ever do that? Like, why am I not past this? Why is this
I just
still
need
making
to
me
let
Why
angry?
am I
go.
stuck?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I need to let this go. Yep.
Yeah.
And the truth is that
Probably by forcing yourself to,
Yeah.
or expecting you to let it go, you actually create it to be stuck longer.
perhaps we haven't sat in it long enough. And I
Right.
hate that.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit in it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm done sitting in it. I really want to move forward.
Apparently, no. The universe says no way.
Oh, so you get to sit until the universe says you're done?
Well,
I don't like that. That
I don't
feels
like that
helpless
either.
to me.
Well, unless you actually truly take it and observe it as opposed to be stuck in it, right?
I think you're right there.
Okay.
So it's that observation component. We have thoughts, we have emotions, right? That's human.
It's part of the gig.
It is part of the gig,
Yeah.
but we are not those emotions and we are not those thoughts, right? I am feeling anger. Am I angry? No, I'm feeling anger. And maybe that allows, I'm saying this for the first time, like literally outside of my head. So if it doesn't
I'm
make
loving it,
sense,
by the way.
forgive me. But maybe I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling peaceful is a different sentiment than I'm sad. And it allows you to actually observe what sadness, I'm feeling sadness means in a separate way.
Exactly. I really like that because I think that I'm not an angry person. I'm not a joyous person. I'm not a peaceful person.
I'm all of those people.
I'm all those people.
Right.
Well, now that we've solved the world problems, let's.
Damn.
But really, I think that yeah,
We're just done here.
I guess we're done here. Let's. Woo! But I
Call
think
that a wrap.
the key is if you could,
Can you come every week?
if we do the planning meeting every week, I will be there for it. The planning meeting is the best.
The plan meeting
is the best part of
this.
I think the key is to pull out that emotion and, like you said, it's really to observe it and try to step out of yourself a little bit and look at that.
Gosh.
Gosh,
So
how do I remember to do that?
But that is really resonating with me because I feel like in my older years anyway, I do that. When I realize I am stuck, I take a step back and I think, what is it about this that's got me hung up? There has to be something here. Clearly this was a trigger because I had an outburst. I had a fight with my husband. I had whatever. What is it about this? It wasn't really, I don't know. The garbage didn't go out. Like that's not really what the argument was about. That's not why I'm still stuck on it 3 days later.
No.
What is it about that? It made me feel uncared for. It made me feel unsafe. It made me feel something.
Yeah, angry to anything.
Something. It made me feel something. And that's where I'm stuck. I'm stuck in that feeling. And I need to take that out and look at it. Why is that my trigger? Why does that make me feel that way? And when I do that, I can communicate that then to whomever I'm having the discord with and say, so I don't want to, and I've done this in my life. I'm not trying to bring up an argument,
Oh, yeah.
but I do need to talk about
This.
why that happened.
Yeah.
This is why I reacted that way. Here's what I was feeling.
Right.
Here's ultimately at the bottom of all of it. I dug it all out and I just dug through it. This is what's at the way far bottom. I didn't feel safe when that happened. I didn't feel cared for. Whatever the emotion was.
And it might be connected to triggers from other relationships.
Sure.
Right?
From your childhood,
past
even.
trauma.
Say, listen,
Absolute
listen,
past trauma.
I know that this one garbage that didn't get taken out, it is not that big of a fucking deal.
Right.
But let me tell you something. After I sat with it and I observed it, right, as, you know, as a silly example, right, this garbage that you didn't take out today, it actually meant this to me.
Right.
Right.
It wasn't about the garbage. I don't care that
These
the
poor
garbage
people
didn't
who
go
have to
out.
live with us who need to interpret the garbage. No, but really,
To be
I mean,
fair,
this
I've never
this
had a fight about the garbage.
Sure,
not
but
going
I
out.
understand
I'm just
it's-
saying, like, I
it's
know that
something
people
that would
do
be
fight
as
about
trivial.
that.
Right.
That could seem as trivial.
It feels like, why are... there have been times where we've been arguing about something, and I'll stop and I'll say, we're not actually arguing about that.
Yeah.
That is not something
That's
worth
the
arguing
surface
over.
thing. Right.
So what are we really arguing about?
Right.
You know what? One more thing about this is that this is really great for our relationships in our houses and with our families. But to be honest with you, it is making such a huge deal in the workforce. And so this is new stats, and I love stats. I'm a word nerd. 95% of people say they're self-aware. Can you believe that? 95%.
No.
95%. And guess
So
what?
most of us, we're doing really well.
Yeah,
then.
Really?
But
I don't
no,
think
no, no.
that's true.
What?
I don't think that number's true. I
This
think
guy's
we
taking the
think
garbage
we're-
out.
Oh, what
right
did
now.
I say?
No. I
No,
think
you were
I
right.
think what you said is accurate based on your research. I'm just not believing.
Oh, I have that too.
That 95% of people are really self-aware.
That's
Right.
because 15% actually are.
Oh, well, see, there you
Right.
go.
According
I'm
to
just
the
ahead of
Journal
myself.
of Personality. So
Sorry.
I didn't just make this up.
I threw us off. I was being sarcastic.
So when I
was like,
so
darn,
when
I
I
cannot-
when I have revealed that I really am not aware about myself at all, I'm not alone.
No, absolutely not. But I think you
I'm
guys
a-
are in the 15%.
I think I'm
At least
aware,
you're
but
getting
I'm
there.
not aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning that I'm not aware.
It's
I
a
thought I was,
process,
but I'm really
right?
not.
It's
And
a
you know,
process.
People who are hiring are looking for people who with high EQs. They say
what
that
EQ, emotional.
quotient. It's
Quotient.
basically your IQ, only for your emotions.
Oh.
And your EQ is 4 times more reliable than your IQ for determining your success in your chosen field.
Well, we talked a little bit about
And we
that
did that at the planning
during,
meeting.
Yeah, during our planning that, regardless as to the hard skills or the expertise that you have in whatever industry and whatever skill that you have, that's a small amount of your level of success in comparison to trying to partner with people and trying to negotiate and trying to have relationships and working together. And that's where that EQ part comes from, right?
Do you feel like...
Gosh, that's so interesting.
Oh, good. Tell me more.
So, in my field, I work in the legal field. We've hired people over the years, right? Like people do. Most of the time, our successful hires have been people with no experience. We always start out with a wish list, right? This experience, that experience, this skill set, that whatever. And we never find those people. We don't. Like we get all of that, but at the end of the interview, we look at each other and we're like,
yeah, we're not
I
getting
don't
that.
think so. No, we're going to take a pass.
Yeah.
They have some of the right criteria, but something's missing.
Yeah.
And we weren't able to necessarily identify what's missing. Every time, literally every single time, the collective group would say, I don't not like that person. Like we're just kind of meh. Every time we were there and we hired that person, it was a disaster.
Interesting.
It is interesting. And I think based on this conversation, what was missing was the EQ, the emotional quotient. The skill set was there. We had no reason on paper to say no to this person.
Right.
But something was not like...
Something
yeah.
wasn't right, but we couldn't identify what it was. It was just a feeling. It's just like, whatever, she's fine, he's fine. Well, I guess we could work with that. Every time we went there, it was a bad decision.
And it's because you can train the hard skills
Well, that's exactly
as
it.
opposed
So when
to the EQ, which is inherent.
That's it. So when we hired people who did not have any of the skill set that we were looking for, but it felt
better.
it felt like a good fit.
Sure.
Those people were good hires.
Right.
That's it. All the feelers need to do the hiring.
Oh, and not squash that feeling.
You're right.
So when you are a team, in a workplace, answering to the HR person who's putting out the ads
Right.
and sending out the recruiters and whatever. And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean you didn't like that person? What, you people can never be satisfied. Well, you gave me a list. I produced the list. He or she was right there in the room with you, and you
I
were
don't know,
like,
man,
no,
just not feeling it.
person."
So
Right.
listen,
So then you have this external pressure to be like, well, I guess I did not like that
but that's
person.
because that's the law. That's the law. Like working from an HR background, that's the law.
You're right.
Like you can't say I chose person A over person B because
I just wasn't feeling it.
Yes,
That's not
like
that's
that is
not
appropriate.
quantifiable, is it?
That's right.
You're
It's
right.
not
It's the hard
quantifiable.
skills that are quantifiable. So from an HR perspective, correct. Like they're going to challenge you
Yes,
and say,
and they
listen,
did.
on paper, this is exactly what you wanted and this is what I provided. So why did this person not get the job? Because that's what you asked for. And this person you want to hire because they don't actually have the qualifications that you said that you needed. But
Poor
it's
HR.
a feel thing.
I feel
It
bad
is.
for HR. They got to follow rules,
It is.
and they want to have.
They're
There's
laws.
no room for feelings.
Well,
Right.
okay. Well, you have to produce a list, right? So HR does not work in your department. They're not on your team.
Sure.
They literally don't know what you do all day. You have to give them some idea of what it is you do so they know what kind of skill set to look for. I get that. Until this very conversation, I was not aware that what we needed to add to the list was some sort of emotional quotient that I still, in this moment, cannot really identify and articulate in words.
Sure. No, I understand that because I think you guys could articulate what are some of the emotional, I guess, qualifications that someone would need, but sometimes you don't know them until they don't have them.
That.
It's like, well,
Yes.
they can't handle pressure, or they
They're not
they
a team
can't work
player.
as a team. They are
Yes.
trying to, take over and be.
I want it.
It's like you only know what you don't want. It's like when you're
You
buying.
don't know what you need until you need it.
Exactly.
Or you don't know
Right.
what you don't know until you figure
Right.
it out.
I don't know
We
what I
once-
want, but I know what I don't want.
Exactly. I
Yes.
don't want that. Yep.
I and this is not an original quote either, but you know what you don't want when you know what you do want.
Exactly.
Right? I think I said that backwards. You know what you
Do want.
do want when you know what you don't want.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We once we hired somebody and we were like, what the heck? Because she checked all the boxes. But she was not fitting in.
Yeah.
I don't know. Several months had gone by and a bunch of us on our team had gone out for lunch. And on the way to the restaurant, this person is talking about how she hates team sports. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. You are telling your teammates how you hate team sports.
That's a good one.
It was so enlightening to me. I left that lunch and I said to some other colleagues, I was like, from now on, when we interview people, we are asking about their feelings on team sports. This is why this isn't working, because she's not a team player. She doesn't know how to be. She's an independent
value
sport
that.
kind of person.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But again, with the, until that happened, I couldn't articulate. I can say you need to be a team player, but what does that actually mean?
It doesn't.
Well,
Right.
it means different for me than for you and for you.
Right.
It's different for everybody.
Right.
She thought she was a team player. She did, because we talked about it during her interview. But when she revealed, unknowingly, that she hates team sports, and here's why. You're not actually a team player.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No.
Well.
It's definitely scratching beneath the surface, and maybe she didn't even realize that either.
I know
right?
she didn't
Her
realize it.
perspective
She had
of a
no
team
idea
player-
what she had just revealed.
Her perspective of being a team player was different than yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So what I hear from you, Nikki, is connect with your primary emotions.
Exactly.
If you don't process those in any way, whether they are deemed positive or negative, they can continue on to what's referred to as secondary emotions. And that's a whole nother spectrum of things.
Yeah, they're
right?
kind of messy. They're kind of messy. Yep, absolutely. And the key is that, again, what we're doing is we're just working on being better processors and observers of our emotion. That's the only thing that I think that we took away today, is that we said it like 5 times. You have to step out and observe your emotions, because, and you might be able to get away with it, every once in a while, but if you continue to not really take a good look at how you're feeling, after a while, it's going to go down the rabbit hole, and you won't remember where that original emotion came from. We talked about it in the planning meeting. I wish I had a little recording of that, because it's now become something different.
So I think one of the analogies we used was when you cut yourself.
Oh yeah, that was it.
And it's in it, you got a little scab, maybe you pick it and it's a little bit infected, but not too bad, and you pick at it and it oozes a little bit, and it's not that messy.
This already
but
sounds
a little
gross.
bit.
It does. I'm ready to throw up a little.
But emotions can be like that
Exactly.
too, right? So then you stop picking at it because you're not going to look at it anymore. I'm going to let that heal. That's how I feel when I've got those emotions I don't want to look at. I'm going to let that heal.
We'll just let that go away.
Yeah, I'm going to let that heal. It'll be fine.
It's
on
gross.
Own.
I don't want to look at that.
I've already
Right.
picked at it, and
Right.
it's disgusting. So it'll heal now, and it'll go away. And then the next morning, you wake up and your hand where you cut yourself is now 3 times its original size, because the infection has.
This got very gory.
I know, but
it's
isn't
true.
This real? But
It
isn't
is.
it an analogy
Unchecked
for feelings,
emotions
right?
truly will not.
And now
unprocessed
your
emotions.
hand is 3 times the size it's supposed to be, and you've got this red streak going up your arm. It's about to kill you.
And now you're
Your
dead.
emotions are like that too. Now you need to have a surgeon come in and lance that shit and let it all just, erupt. But that's what your emotions do. I know it's disgusting
No,
and
but
graphic.
it is the truth.
But maybe you don't actually go to a surgeon, but but somebody triggers you, and now you erupt.
Exactly.
Just like that big old pussy infection, you erupt.
Yep.
Yes.
Have you ever been off the rails before and you don't even know why you're mad anymore?
Yes.
Done it, right?
Yes.
Angry.
What were we?
Acting
What was it?
completely inappropriate, and everyone's looking at you like, what just happened? Why is this such a big deal? This was nothing. Right? It was a little cut. It was a paper cut. Now suddenly you need surgery. It's that.
Yeah.
And then we start to feel like we're crazy.
Yes. And you're broken. Look how broken you are. You just exploded all over nothing.
And
it was
then-
a paper cut.
Right, and then that draws a whole bunch of other emotions, right?
Oh,
Well,
gosh, shame.
now I'm disappointed in myself,
Oh,
and
good
I'm
Lord.
embarrassed, and
Yes.
all of those things.
Yes.
You guys, it is amazing that this podcast is talking about this stuff. Really, it is. I mean, where else can you take some great ownership, decide you want to be better, and, come back and listen to another episode, and it kind of just feeds off of that. I don't know anywhere else where women are discussing these things like
Nikki.
this.
Wow.
Thank
And
you.
we're admitting truths, but we're forgiving ourselves, and we're learning in the process. It's a really good thing.
It makes me joyful.
Don't let it get out of control.
Okay.
Or you can. I will allow for this temporary secondary emotionary fix. Go to it. Dance on a tabletop. I don't know.
Well, we're not going that far. It is only Thursday.
Go find a fireman. I don't know.
Nope, that either.
Though that ship may have sailed.
Exactly.
Long ago.
Just sit with that joy. Just sit
All
with
right,
it.
sit with your joy.
Thanks. Nikki, thanks for joining us and giving us a little
boy.
bit of insight to emotional management. I'm imagining that if people are interested in pursuing this, just like you researched it,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of information online. What are some of the resources that you use?
Honestly, a quick Google search of primary and secondary emotions will give you a lot. And if you really are a word nerd, you can look up any kind of this information on the Journal of Psychology.
Oh.
My word nerd self and research self, that's one of my favorite things.
Love it.
So I would start there.
Awesome.
Or just call me and we can have coffee and talk about primary and secondary emotions. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We really
for
appreciate
joining
you
us.
Yeah.
coming.
This was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
loved it.
going to take this away.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna sit in it for a while.
sit in it.
Yeah.
I'm going to observe.
Yeah. Observe it, sit it. I just can't wait to see what you guys come up with next.
Oh yeah. Well, we got all sorts of
on
fun
it.
things
We're
planned.
on it.
Good. We can't wait. Season
Awesome.
2.
All right. This one's a wrap, Lisa.
Toodaloo.
So thanks to Mind Garden Media.
Absolutely.
Todd, thank you very much for always just being our steadfast. He's not just the guy who produces our podcast, we schedule time with him to bounce ideas off of him, and he gives us a gut check. Really.
He does give us a gut check, especially as Enneagram instinct people. But he is absolutely our light to follow. It gives us suggestions and recommendations and
encouragement when we're on the right track. He's like, that's a great idea. You should do that. Yeah.
Thanks.
And if we're not quite there yet, he'll say, so that's a good idea, but you need to do this and this before you can get to that.
Yep. He's a great mentor.
He
Thank you.
So if you want to start a podcast, I know a guy.
I have a phrase, but I'm not going to say that.
All right, leave that alone. He's our cousin.
Yes.
So anyway, Mind Garden Media, thank you for that. And thank you, as always, to our listeners for following along, for tagging along, for commenting, for reaching out privately. Really.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
We appreciate you more than words can express.
Yeah.
Thanks for all of that.
Joy.
Oh, yeah.
That
primary emotion, joy.
Yeah.
That's
the word that can express it.
I've started something. I feel like I've started something.
You have.
You may have.
Thank you. All right, guys.
Till next time. Bye. Toodaloo.